All right, Meg 2, let's go. Oh, all right, man. We like went back in time here.
T-Rex, baby.
Oh, dude. That's the first mistake, dude. He's in the water.
T-Rex.
Yeah, but he's in the water, bro.
Oh?
You see the title of the movie? Dude, I told you! Oh shit.
Wait, how's it going back in the water? Whatever is down there. Wait, I thought that guy died in the last one. That guy definitely died in the last one. He's black.
No, he survived, man.
That's the biggest Meg I've ever seen.
No, he's jacked up.
Bro.
That's the apex predator.
Everybody make it to the station!
Oh shit.
Yeah,
oh, that dude, that's a tribute to Jaws, man. That's a tribute to Jaws. Where Quentin had his leg up. That's awesome.
Relax.
Yeah, I actually remember that too.
Meg proof.
Oh, dude, like it's
It's Meg proof.
It's so insane. Why would you even take a risk?
She had to get a selfie.
I love the soundtrack for this too, man. This is like got some heart going on. Awesome. Oh, dude, I love that shot, like it coming up like that. That's so awesome. They used that in the first movie. August 4th, man. Oh, dude, I can't wait. I will be there. Yo, dude, that trailer was sick. I did not expect to see the Megalodon come out of the water and take out a T-Rex. Legit, that was awesome. Steve Alten is the guy that we interviewed for this week's episode. He is an awesome guy. Got 20 plus books under his name. Meg, A Novel of Deep Terror, is one of them. That movie came out a couple years ago. This is the sequel. Meg, The Trench, comes out on August 4th, and it was so awesome to talk to this guy, man. He was just awesome.
Yeah, we had a blast, man.
Yeah, with that being said, guys, enjoy our interview with Steve Alten.
What's your name? Say it!
It doesn't matter what your name is!
Say my name.
What's your name? What? What is your name? Tony!
You're listening to Don't Call Us Anthony podcast. All guest views and opinions are their own, but don't worry, the hosts will share theirs so you can call them opinionated. But just don't call them Anthony. And now, the hosts of Don't Call Us Anthony, Cooley and Tony.
All right. Well, Steve, I just want to thank you for coming on the Don't Call Us Anthony podcast. It's an honor to have you on. I have been a big fan of your book, Meg, A Novel of Deep Terror, since I think 98 when I read the book in high school. I actually read the book twice. I couldn't put it down the first time, and then after I was done with it, I picked it up and read it a second time. And I remember my teacher asking me, "You still reading that book?" And I said, "I'm reading it for the second time." He's like, "Oh, it's that good?" I'm like, "Yep." so, and then I think he actually went on to read it, but I never followed up with him about that. So, but with that being said, Steve, would you mind telling our listeners who may not know who you are exactly what you do? You are an author, but maybe a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Well, it's you mentioned 1997 was the year my first book came out, MEG, A Novel of the Deep Terror, but giant 70-foot prehistoric great white shark called Megalodon. And back in 97, not a lot of people knew that, but they seem to become aware of it over the years, and I'm sure I contributed a little bit to that. I'm the author of, right now, 18 published novels and one rom-com called Dog Train the American Mail by a different, using a pen name, L.A. Knight. And let's see, it took 23 years, but we finally got the MEG movie on screen.
Yeah, we did.
Sure, 24 years, I already noticed. And personally, on the positive side, you are not the only teenager who enjoyed MEG in high school.
Mhm.
That led us to put together a nonprofit called Adopt an Author, which
Yes.
teachers who want to take on the book as part of their curriculum or any of my other books, they can go to adoptanauthor.com and sign up. It's free. We provide them with free curriculum materials, projects, tests, quizzes, everything they need, plus contact with yours truly over the years, either by speakerphone into the classroom or conference call, or now, of course, we have a Zoom. So we try to stick this too. If my voice sounds a little shaky, it's been a long day for me. And I have Parkinson's disease for the last 17 years. I was diagnosed 17 years ago. So you'll hear it in my voice a little bit. So if I'm not clear, let me know. I'll try to keep nice and liquid.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you definitely sound fine over here, so we can hear you nice and clear. Yeah, I think one of the great things is the Adopt an Author program. I know that my buddy was a teacher in Rhode Island, and I think he had looked into that at one point, so I was aware of that program. I think that's awesome that you do that. So congrats on that. And thank you for doing that. I think one of the coolest things about MEG specifically is that, like you said, I was not even aware of what a megalodon was until I actually read your book. I was always fascinated with sharks. My number one favorite movie of all time is Jaws. So when I found out that there was a book about a megalodon, I was like, I am all into this. So, you know, and you really, it was definitely terrifying. And I really enjoyed that there eventually was a movie made of it. But I mean, how long had you, just the last time when the MEG finally came out as a film, I mean, had you ever gotten that far before? Was there ever, in the past, had there been opportunities for this film to be made? Because I feel like the book was very well received. I mean, but it took it's 23 years. Like, had it ever gotten close to being made before?
Well, the story about the movie is that it actually came out, we actually got an option for the movie, sold the dramatic rights before we sold the publishing rights. And that was planned like that. I wrote the book in 1995 after reading a Time magazine article on the Mariana Trench, and that married the two things that led to the book, which is an unexplored realm 7 miles deep, 1,550 miles long. And a megalodon, with whose disappearance was kind of bizarre because here's the apex predator of all time. And it lived only about 30 million years ago, up to almost about 100,000 years ago. So feasibly, it's possible that we could be down there, and that when it's feasible, then that makes for great fiction.
Mm-hmm.
The literary agent that I was blessed to come up with, who took on my work, Ken Atchity, decided that we were going to market it as a movie first, and then the book. So by selling, he had quite a first look deal with Disney's Hollywood Pictures, and so they optioned MEG for about. They took out an option on it. And then once that was announced that publishing back then wasn't affected by Amazon and things like that, all the publishing houses were pretty strong back then. And so that started a bidding war for MEG. It happened, and I'm laughing because at the time I was working as the general manager of the wholesale meat company, which is a bizarre story in itself because I knew nothing about meat, but on sales. And that started out, Ken and I were working together to get the book ready, I think in January of 1996. In March or April of 96, I got a phone call from a guy who said, "Are you Steve Alden?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I could have been your father." He kind of genetic mishap going along.
That's the strangest phone call ever.
Turns out the guy used to date my mother when she was a teenager, and he wants to meet me. So, okay, what the hell? I get in the car, drive over to his meat company. An hour later, I walk down with a box of fillets, and the job was as a sales manager. And it was a bizarre company because I don't want to get too much into that, but I did write a screenplay about it called Mince Meats. And, this is all true. On Friday the 13th in September 1996, I went to work to find out that the family that was running the place under him, his sons and stepsons and they had finally come together and united and decided that they didn't need me anymore. We had to let me go. So I went home. I think we had about $48 in the bank at the time. I was too. But I wasn't nervous because I knew that the book was going to go out next week to the publishing house. But we hadn't been paid yet on the Hollywood Pictures deal, but it was coming and ended. So I was confident about that. But we had a signed contract. So Tuesday rolls around, the book goes out, and starts a bidding war for MEG publishing rights. And that, together with the concept for my next book, My Prophecy, which would eventually become Domain, the winning bid was Banff Doubleday, who published Jaws, for $2.1 million for 2 books. I literally went from the crap house to the penthouse on its own full.
Wow. That's awesome.
Now that was actually a roller coaster ride because the book came out, it was a New York Times bestseller. The foreign rights went to like 20 countries. But the company that eventually bought Doubleday, Bertelsmann, did not like the fact that at the Frankfurt Book Fair, my book was the #1 sale. They hated books like mine. And so they ended up buying Doubleday. And what a coincidence, I lost my second book deal. Well, I was supposed to be paid a lot of money. We just moved into a house, our dream home, just bought new cars. And I realized we're going to lose all that. But we say you go on, you get back on the horse again. So while we're suing over the rights of the Mayan book so I could get it back, without having to pay anything, I started writing The Trench, which is the movie, was the book that's Sorry about that.
No worries.
The Trench is the second book in the movie, and that'll be out in August 4th, I believe.
Awesome.
Now that's also going to be with the same character.
Yes.
Same main character.
Now I haven't read. I'm sorry, Cooley. I haven't read any of the scripts for MEG 2. I never read the scripts for MEG 1. They don't tell me anything. I think when you sell your rights as an author, they let you park the cars at the premiere, but that's about it.
Now you didn't have any input on the screenplay in the first movie at all?
Actually, I wrote the first screenplay myself with Belle Avery, who was the lead producer. I had option.
Yeah.
She and I are good friends, and so I trust her with it. As long as she's attached, I don't worry about it.
Gotcha.
And one thing I didn't mention, so we had Hollywood Pictures option before the book was sold. When the head of the studio was fired, David Goebel, 2 years later, the option went back to me. Then we had to find a new company. Excuse me. And so the next company that we managed to get a deal from was New Line Cinema. And there were like 12 producers attached. It was just a cluster F, I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So they held on to the rights, hired a new script writer, of course. He wrote Moby Dick with a megalodon. It literally, that's what he wrote. Nothing to do with my story. I wanted to jump out the window when I read that script of his.
Understandably.
But fortunately, they gave up the rights in 2 years because they mismanaged the foreign rights. And we got the rights back again. And that's when I took it to my friend Belle Avery. And I said, Belle, take this, it's yours. I'll give me $1.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me more than that, but she sent me $1 anyway. It's right up.
It framed it. Right.
It took her 8 years to get it produced because she had to raise the money herself, but she was able to do it. So by raising private money, she wasn't over the barrel like the studios keep you over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't make a deal with Warner Brothers because they were going to distribute for us and they wanted it in the project. And good for them, a good company. And so the movie ended up, everyone predicted the movie was going to be bomb, except I knew it wasn't going to be. I knew it was going to be great. Because while I've on the adopted author program over the last 23 years, that's a small army, just like yourself. You're part of the army. You're big head, right?
That's right.
So as big head as we have to get to the movies and see it. And that's what happened. It was #1 domestic and #1 foreign.
Now, what was your feelings on the film once it was released? I'm sure, you went to the premiere and everything, but what was your general reaction when you finally saw like your baby like on screen?
I thought it was great. I thought it was a great movie. There's some things in the first act I would have done differently, and I did do differently when I wrote it. But, I understand why they do stuff like that. And by the way, it's sort of like a rule in Hollywood that they're going to change everyone. They're going to change enough of the script so that the new screenwriter has to get credit from the WGA, which is a bizarre rule because it's basically saying that unless they change everything or change 30% of it, they're not going to get credit. So naturally, the new screenwriter goes in, they start changing things. Doesn't matter if it makes sense, but if they want credit, that's what they're going to do. So,
all right.
Well, here's the deal.
Now, what was your? I mean, obviously, you're working in a meat factory at this point. When you were
factory, also, it wasn't a meat factory, although they did have a butcher room. More like frozen goods, frozen meats, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Not that it matters because I didn't know. What line from
No, for sure. I mean, but thank you for correcting me. I want to make sure we do get it right. When you were writing this book, I mean, what was your inspiration for Meg? I mean, were you always a fan of sharks, or is this just like so you had heard about the megalodon and decided to write a book on it, or like what happened?
I was sort of like you. When I was 15, I read the book by Peter Benchley, and when I was reading it, I don't know if you felt this way, but I loved the book, but what I really wanted was how it opened. I want to see the shark.
Yeah.
It's like he detoured off the shark path so much to fill in the rest of the story. I said, okay, when it came time to write Meg, I knew that I was going to make it nonstop action.
Mm-hmm.
Going to give people what I wanted, which was, like I said, a lot of shark action.
Gotcha. Now, have you ever been in a shark cage or been that close to great whites before?
Hell no. Why would I do something?
Because a lot
of asshole to get the cage with a great white. I mean, come on.
Well, what's funny is like I do not go in the water because of sharks, because of Jaws. And so like I always ask that people, like I was like, I wonder if Steve ever got into a cage, to study sharks and all or anything like that. I would never be able to do it. I don't think I'd like to think that I would be able to know myself well enough, but I also think I might panic when I realized how big the thing was when it came up. So I don't know.
Like I said, I've had Parkinson's for 17 years, so none of that was going to happen with Parkinson's, but either as I tried it before, it's too tempting to the gods to write, made author drowns in the shark cage, addicts and drowns in shark cage, so.
That's awesome.
The fate's that kind of lead.
So another question I have for you too is, you've written a bunch of stuff. You also have, right now, I mean, I would love to give you a couple minutes to talk about Meg Legacy, which I know you're selling, which is like the entire series, which I think is amazing. So I'd like to give you a second to talk about that. I've seen it on Instagram, on your website. So
yeah, it was an idea I had because I've always heard from Meg heads that the one thing they really wanted was a complete set of the books in hardback collector's thing. But you couldn't do that because there are 3 different publishers out for it, and publishers don't work like that. And besides, I wanted something more because over the years, not only have I have one more novel to make, the 7th and last one, that's Meg Purgatory, but I've also written a prequel, Meg Varshes. I'll write one, and I'm actually going to write 2 more of these novellas, which are short stories, and fit them into the timeline for Meg. So because Meg starts out with Jonas when he's 37 years old. 4 years later, the trench picks up. There's a gap in there, that 4-year gap. What happened? How did now I don't want to ruin the story for people, but, there is a big gal named Angel, the Angel of Death, who swims around in this Tanaka Institute in Monterey. And what happened to her, So a novella helped me fill in the blanks, and I'm going to write a couple novellas too. So you got more to the story, and you've got a graphic novel, you've got tribute to the Meg heads, you've got a lot of things that I'm going to put in there, extras and things that happen behind the scenes. And so I thought, I can't do it. I am a publisher and I'm publishing, but I mean, all of those, I have the rights to a few of them, but nothing in the contract said anything about a collector's edition.
Mm-hmm.
Limited collector's edition with faux leather as the covers, best of everything in them. The gold leaves to go, size of the pages and stuff. And so that made the most sense to me, because that could be something that would really be a keepsake that people would take care of. And I wanted it to. It looked so good when we designed it. So that's what we're doing. If you want a copy of MEG Legacy, we're selling one volume at a time. We just start selling volume 1, and we'll be having this printed in about 2 months instead of out to the end of about 4 months. And you're going to love it. I mean, it's just great. But you can only get it at stevealten.com.
Yeah, and it looks amazing too. I mean, if you guys have not seen it, make sure to check out stevealten.com. Also, if you check out his Instagram, you can see it there. It really is beautiful. So definitely check that out. So I think the thing that interests me about you as an author is that it seems that you tend to take on things that are somewhat fictitious. I mean, and I've always been into the Loch Ness Monster. So how did the Loch come about? Or I mean, that series, I mean, is that something that you have an interest in? Do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster, or has that just been something that's always fascinated you?
Well, let's go back to where you use the word fictitious. I do write fiction, so that kind of fits what I do, but
right.
I write is more like faction, because what I do is I research the hell out of it. So I come up with every little detail on it, and make it so real that it blurs the line between fiction and fact. And by doing that, I've actually been proven correct on a lot of fictitious stuff that came true. With MEG, I got into a fight with this one guy who's set up by the LA Times to turn, basically insult my writing. And he wrote it, and the guy was somebody who wrote the screenplay chart book that I use as a reference for MEG. But Richard Ellis is his name. And LA Times were pissed off that Doubleday had used the quotes from the LA Times reporter who had interviewed me, which was Jurassic Shark, which is a great quote. But the LA Times editorial guy, he was pissed off about that. So he hires Richard Ellis to basically land-based my book. But Richard goes after me for, only in this topsy-turvy universe could hot water be below cold water. What are you talking about? You never heard the sides of government events. And then, and there's he made the declaration, even though no one's been down there since 1960, and they went straight down, came back up again, Bathscape. He decided that there are no hydrothermal vents in the Mariana Trench. Really? What? Good to know. Not that I have to prove anything, because I'm writing fiction, but if someone comes at me like that and questions my research, I go right back at it. And my research told me there are vents down there because all things in a seismic area. In fact, the Philippine Sea Plate is amazing because there's deep water traces around every border of it. Mm-hmm. Guess what? 10 years after my book came out, guess what they found in the Mariana Trench? Hydrothermal vents were a shocker. He also found albino sharks down there too.
Yeah.
He also found some of them that even are like electric, they light up with phosphorescence. And I mentioned that in my book too, so he loses on all counts.
Yeah.
But what I got my revenge anyway. I made a character called Richard Ellis and killed the wolf in the track.
That's awesome. You get the last word for sure. That's awesome.
That's what a lot of people.
Oh man.
Now the kids love it. They all are vying for being a character and they all want to die.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I think Cooley, did you have a question? Did I cut you off? Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just wanted to say, like, I had the fortune of actually doing this in reverse and seeing the movie first. And I say I had the fortune of doing that because, like, a lot of times when I read the book and then I see the movie, I'm disappointed, right? Like, because there are changes and there are things that maybe I would have done differently, or I see it differently in my head when I read. But you see the movie, then you read the book. It's so first of all, the movie was better to me because I hadn't read the book yet. Then it inspired me to read the book because I was like, oh, this is really cool. I love this. I'm a big Jason Statham fan, and it was action wall to wall, but it was it was just such a cool concept. So I wanted to read the book and like maybe flesh it out a bit. And like, it was a different story. Like it was the same story, but they did it differently. Like in one of the things, like you had mentioned the hypothermal event, being like a factor. And in the movie, I'm wondering, cause like I saw the movie once and I'm trying to figure out if I saw this correctly. And I don't know if you can, shed some light on it, but in the movie, it feels like I felt like they used the vessel that exploded as the hypothermal vent.
Yeah, they kind of screwed a couple things up. First of all, they put the site of the big nuclear warship, big submarine nuclears, out of LA class with the big Typhoon class.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Russian. Sorry about that. The big, the one named after all the states. But those submarines can't get down that far. They were imploded.
Mm-hmm.
That made no sense. Why? And the second, why was the sub attacked by a megalodon or whatever that was? If we're not in the Mariana Trench, are we saying that in every trench there's megalodon population?
Right.
They sort of like breezed by it because they were the goal was to establish Jonas Taylor, or our star's role as an action hero who sort of lost his nerve, but he loses every single one of his people. So, of course, in the book, Jonas Taylor is piloting a bath escape with two scientists in it, so it's a little bit different kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I really love the movie, but for me, like, the book is definitely like always going to have a special place in my heart, because that is what introduced me to the megalodon and into the story. So even though the movie was great, the book is it's one of those situations where the book was definitely better, which is, and you wrote it, so I mean, that's something to be said. It was awesome. I do have one question that I was meaning to ask you, because it's a very it's very important to me. Is you actually wrote a book called Undisclosed, which I find super interesting. And I also was on your Instagram, and I noticed that you have a picture with somebody that I've admired for the past 20 years, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yep.
And you mentioned in that post that you had been on his CE5 meditation, which is something I want to do, but I haven't done yet. I have the app. I just watched his latest documentary. So with that being said, I mean, can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for that novel? Because it is, as you say, factitious. There are a lot of facts in that novel about what I believe is actually really going on. I think that all of that stuff is actually happening. I don't think a lot of people are aware of it. I think it's a topic that a lot of people get laughed at for talking about, but I also feel like it's a serious thing. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of talking about that book for a little bit, and maybe your experience on that meditation, that would be awesome, if you don't mind sharing.
Not at all. Okay, first of all, how did I meet Dr. Stephen Greer? I was writing the book Phobos Mind Fear, which is the third in the Mind series, and there was a place in the book that has to deal with extraterrestrials and UFOs. So I happened upon, doing my research, I happened upon his special where he had he was about 20 people testify, and so these were not just 20 people; these were Army personnel, scientists, NASA personnel, jet fighter pilots, and people in the business end of the war machine too, that were testifying that these things are real. So I wrote to him and I said, listen, I'm writing this book. I'd like to excerpt some of your guests, and I'll certainly give you credit. And he wrote back and said, no problem, go ahead. So I finished the book, sent him a signed copy, and then I heard from his wife actually, and she said, we're going to be down in Miami. Stephen would love to get together for dinner. Can you make it? Absolutely. This is amazing. 3 days before, my wife and I are supposed to drive down to Miami and have dinner with the couple, the Greers. we're driving home from a movie. It's like 11 o'clock at night. And if you read Undisclosed, you read the story already. We see some lights coming out of I guess it was coming out of moving south to north over 441, which is a major road where we live. And there's no noise. They seem to be just moving steadily, peacefully, and go right over the top of us. As we watch, as they go off in the distance, they just fade to nothing, like they had entered a different universe or a higher universe, fourth dimension.
Right.
We had never seen anything like that before. It was just amazing. It was just a wonderful gift to be shown that obviously intelligent, peaceful, not like anything you think based upon the media. And of course, we go down to see Dr. Greer, and it's the first thing out of our mouths. And he said, they were testing you. Anyone I meet for the first time, it's a common occurrence. So we talked that all night, and his biggest challenge is that he can't get the mainstream media to follow him because he's listed as such. It's a challenge because it's one of the challenges, like a blockade of seeing him because he carries the truth with him, and the military doesn't want the truth out there. I mean, this is all black ops stuff.
Right.
It's very real. So I said to Dr. Greer, listen, I got a publishing company, A&M Publishing. We've published several books already. How about if I write a book and I take all of your books and give him a different feel? Like, let me edit your work because his work is terrific, but his books are very dense and he's all over the place. They're not easy reads because everywhere.
Right.
So what I did was he had a deal. He was making a CD, a film called what was this book? Sounds like undisclosed, but
Unacknowledged.
Unacknowledged. Thank you. Unacknowledged. Yep. So I worked on his book while he worked on the film, and the deal was that I would publish it for him if he gave me the rights to use his interviews, because in order to write his book or edit his book, I should say, I had to go through 400 interviews and pull out the best ones and put them into an organized fashion in his book, which is what I did. And in exchange for that, I would be able to use them in my fictional book. So that's why my book seems so real, because 90% of it is real based upon his interviews.
Gotcha. And when you went out with him and did the meditation, did you have any experiences there?
Oh, yeah. We had a big experience. Guess it was about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and two lights came up over the ocean. Two very orange, pale light, beautiful, one at a time. And they just stood out there over the ocean. And then one faded back and so one the other did.
Mm-hmm.
And then the jet fighters came over. Whenever there's an event, there's jet fighters right behind it because they're tracking these things on radar.
Unfortunately.
That was pretty cool.
Now, so what year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
Let me think. I'm going to guess 2015.
2015. Okay, yeah, because there is, I think it was in Unacknowledged, they had, or one of the films, I think it was even in the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, he has the video footage, and it might have been in the very early 2000s where there were those two orange orbs that were over like the ocean and the horizon. It seems very similar to what you're describing.
That is what I just described.
Yeah, that's amazing.
There. It was at, what beach was it? Was it north of Florida? I'll think of it in a second. But yeah, I mean, if you watch up on the internet, it'll come up.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So do you have anything, I know MEG Legacy is something that's up and running right now. You're launching that. Is there anything else that's in the works right now? You mentioned a couple things, but anything that you want anybody listening to keep an eye out for?
That's the big one. I'm also finishing Lock 3, Heaven's Lake, which is a great, great book. Took me a lot longer than I thought. It was 4 years to write. And it's also the longest book I've ever written.
Wow.
I hope to finish that in the next 2 or 3 months so I get that out there because my fans have been very patient.
Mm-hmm.
And, they pre-purchased the book. So I owe them a bestseller. And this is definitely one.
Nice.
Awesome. And your website, I mean, everybody can find you at stevealten.com. You're definitely on Instagram. Are you on Facebook at all?
Yes.
Okay, Facebook as well. Okay.
But now, if you go to stevealten.com, it's spelled SteveAlten.com.
Okay.
Scroll down the first page, the welcome page, and you'll see MEG Legacy, what it is, because we're only going to print 5,000 copies of it, and it's going to be worth a lot of money almost immediately. We did the same thing with MEG Generations, where we published the book and put out a limited hardback release. And they were selling, instead of for $40 each or $30 each, they were selling for $250 to $500 because people just couldn't get it.
Gotcha.
Books out there in paperback and trade paperback, but not out in hardback like this.
All right.
Yeah, I'm probably going to pick that up myself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, me too. Yeah, I definitely want to grab that. Steve, like I said, once again, it's just been a pleasure talking to you. I loved, like I said, I love your book. I love the stuff that you're writing. I really a big fan of Undisclosed as well. So
yeah, and Tony, I did forget one thing.
Sure.
You've been to seamonstercoat.com?
I have not.
Oh man, that's an amazing site. I wrote it when just before COVID came out. I had the amazing 60 days of just pure imagination was going crazy, and it demanded that I put this together. At first, I thought it was just a TV series, and then I realized it's a lot more because I want to see these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Backstory is that there's an island. This is all true. There's an island in the Mariana Islands on MEG, MEG. Sounds like MEG, but MEG. And, well, I don't want to give too much of it away, but if you go to the website, seamonsterscode.com, you can take a little bit of a tour, and you mentioned cage diving. You get the cage dive with Don Leostius and the Applaudon and some of these other creatures. The two stars of the show are Snowflake and Layla. They're the giant mega sharks that they save the lives of. And it's just an amazing site.
It's funny too, because I'm looking at the website right now, and that whole situation, like that whole island right there that's set up, it really reminds me of kind of like the last scene, or like from Deep Blue Sea, where they had like those sharks that they were working on in that film. That it reminds me of that, and like how one of them was trying to escape. But that's that island looks awesome.
There's a hotel where you get a suite, and the back of it faces the tank of Snowflake. So she's constantly circling the window and nudging wants to play ball. He's like 60 feet.
That's awesome.
That's crazy. Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Sea Monster. Yeah. So seamonstercove.com. Guys, check that out. This is awesome.
Yeah, and there's Steve standing in the mouth of a megalodon.
Yeah, I was just seeing that. That's right. And a megalodon, like that, what, 60 or 70 feet they're supposed to be?
I think that's 60 to 70. The females were much larger.
Oh, my God.
And probably weighed 50 tons.
I remember Cooley and I were talking about this before you had joined, and we said, Cooley was like, how does something that big go extinct? Like, it makes you wonder.
They don't go extinct, Cooley. They go deep because the orcas control the surface waters, but nothing can follow them in the depths. I don't even think an orca could go more than 1,000 feet deep. If that,
Oh, wow.
I think the limit's about 400 or 500 feet. So a man can only go about, I think it's about 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
Except in bathyscapes. Bathyscapes can go a lot more, but a regular tubular sub would crush under the pressure. You have to be sphere-shaped in order for the pressure to be equalized.
So what's the verdict, Steve? Do you think that there's one down there?
Oh, hell yeah. And I'll be on TV, major news when they find it.
I don't know. Dude, let's hope they don't, though, because then your book might come true.
Oh yeah, Tone, you had to ask him about Locke too, like just the like the belief in.
Oh yeah, the belief in the Loch Ness monster. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the Loch Ness monster is real?
Actually, my manager, Kadachi, was the one that suggested I write it, and I turned him down first because I did not believe it was real.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be a plesiosaur because they died all 65 million years ago, and they're air-breathing.
Right.
Air-breathing marine reptile. But I spoke to a friend of mine who's a paleontologist and a cryptozoologist, and he knows exactly what it was. And I spoke to him, and he gave me his theories, and I said, that's what we were right. So my goal is to separate the science from the myth, because they're making a lot of money on the myth right now. But the science says that there is a creature down there. It's a modern day creature. And but you got to read the book to find out what it is.
All right. That's fair. That's definitely fair. I would check that out. All right. Well, Steve, I just want to thank you for coming on, man. This has been a blast, talking about your book and talking about what's coming and the film and just, your experiences in different areas. So I appreciate it very much. Everybody make sure you check out stevealten.com. Also seamonstercove.com. Some cool stuff there. And keep your eyes out for MEG Legacy. Make sure you guys pick up a copy of that. That's going to be awesome. So
yeah, you have to pre-order it, and it'll come to your house. I'll sign all the books, and if you order before June, but also a good percentage of the profit is going to pay for research on a new cancer option, natural, and can replace chemotherapy if we can get enough attention. So it's
awesome. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing. I think we need that for sure.
Absolutely. Chemo's awful. Like I haven't.
If you know what website, our website for that, I'm giving you a lot of websites. GoOnCancer.com.
GoOnCancer.com.
On GONEcancer.com. You'll see everything we have about it.
All right.
And if anybody wants to get a list of all these links, they're going to be in the description below this video. So be sure to check those out too. So, all right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Steve? I don't want to keep you, but I definitely want to, let you draw out anything you need to.
Yeah, pretty good here. So I want to say thank you both to you. And if you want to do it again, I would love to do it again. I had a good time. You guys are good guys. And I will always support you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out this episode, and we truly appreciate your support. If you are listening to this episode, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and rate it to help us share these conversations with others who may enjoy it. If you're watching the show on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as we drop new and exciting content. Thank you so much again for joining, and be sure to tell your friends. Just make sure you don't call us Anthony.